He hadn't meant to stare. But there was something about the way she moved, slow, deliberate, like she owned every second that passed. The office had emptied hours ago, and the only sound left was the low hum of the vending machine and the soft squeak of her mop gliding across the marble floor. She didn't notice him at first. Or maybe she did, and just didn't care. He leaned against the glass railing, tie loosened, still half in his suit, half out of his pride. Losing a bet to her had been a joke at first, a small wager over something ridiculous, like how long he could last in the maintenance wing without complaining about the smell of bleach. But now he was here, long after midnight, watching her in the same space that most executives never even entered. Her name was Lena. He'd learned that much when she'd written it in sharp black marker across a clipboard, clean handwriting, firm strokes. Everything about her was quiet command. She couldn't have been younger than 45, but the years hadn't dulled her. They'd refined her. When she finally looked up, her eyes found him easily, like she'd been expecting him. "You don't have to stand there looking guilty," she said, wringing out the mop. He tried to sound casual. "Wasn't planning to." Her mouth twitched, just barely. "Could have fooled me." He stepped closer, the air between them thick with the scent of citrus cleaner and something faintly floral, her perfume, barely there, but enough to make him forget why he'd come. The light above them flickered once, leaving a thin halo on her hair. "I still think you cheated," he said. "On what?" "The bet." "Then you shouldn't have made it," she replied, not looking at him, but there was a trace of amusement under her tone. He watched her hands, slender, sure, twisting the mop handle, tightening, releasing. She didn't speak again for a moment, and that silence stretched like elastic. He wanted to fill it, but couldn't find the right words. Every line he rehearsed in his head sounded either arrogant or juvenile. So he stood there, letting the quiet win. When she finally walked past him to rinse the bucket, her arm brushed against his. Just barely. A whisper of skin, accidental or not. It left a mark, not one he could see, but one he could feel. "You think being a CEO means you don't have to clean up after yourself?" she asked, without turning. He smiled faintly. "Depends who's watching." Now she turned, slowly. Her gaze met his, and something unspoken hung between them, fragile but undeniable. The kind of moment that could tilt either way if one of them breathed too hard. "Then you're lucky," she said quietly. "I'm not watching." But she was. He could see it in the way her hands stilled on the handle, in the slight hitch of breath she tried to hide. The mop clattered softly against the bucket. Her fingers brushed his wrist as she reached past him, intentional this time. The contact was brief, almost professional, but the pulse in his throat betrayed him. The silence stretched again. He didn't move. Neither did she. Then the elevator dinged, sudden, sharp. The spell cracked. A voice called out from down the hall, distant but enough to scatter whatever fragile thing had formed between them. She pulled back first, her face composed again, eyes unreadable. "You should probably go," she said. He nodded, but didn't. His voice came out lower than he expected. "Lena," but she'd already turned away, water rippling in the bucket, her reflection breaking apart in it, calm on the surface, impossible to read underneath. The next night, he found her again. It wasn't planned. He told himself he'd just left a report on the wrong desk, or forgotten his laptop charger. But when the elevator doors opened and the faint scent of disinfectant reached him, he knew that wasn't true. Lena was there, same uniform, same steady rhythm, mop, rinse, repeat. But tonight, music played softly from her phone speaker. Something old. Soulful. The kind of song that made quiet spaces feel less lonely. She looked up. Didn't think CEOs worked graveyard shifts. He shrugged, trying to look casual, though his chest felt tight. Didn't think janitors danced while they cleaned. She smiled, small but real this time. keeps the ghosts away. He wanted to say something back, something clever, something that didn't sound like a man looking for reasons to stay, but the words tangled before they left his mouth. Instead, he watched her move. The way her shoulders rolled slightly with the music, the way a strand of hair kept falling loose from her bun. She wasn't graceful in a rehearsed way, it was quieter, more honest. Every motion spoke of years lived, of muscles that had carried more than their share. He'd been around women his age, loud, ambitious, polished until they gleamed. But Lena was present. She looked at people and saw them. Maybe that was what made him nervous. She paused, sensing his gaze. "You keep showing up here. Should I be worried?" He smirked. "Maybe I just like the company." "Or maybe," she said, wringing out the mop, "you don't know what to do with silence." He swallowed. She wasn't wrong. His life had been built around noise, meetings, calls, voices that praised or demanded. Silence, to him, always meant failure. But around her, silence didn't accuse. It waited. He took a slow breath. "You ever get tired of this?" She looked at him over her shoulder. "Of what?" "This job. The late hours. The people who look right through you." She leaned on the handle. "Sometimes. But I stopped needing people to see me a long time ago." Something in her tone, too casual, too practiced, tugged at him. "What happened?" Her eyes flickered, guarded. "Life. Happens to everyone." Then, softer, "My son's your age. Haven't seen him in years." He wanted nothing to do with the woman who scrubbed floors for a living. He didn't know what to say to that. The air thickened between them again, not with attraction this time, but with something heavier, understanding. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. She smiled, not bitterly, but with the kind of grace that came from surviving. "Don't be. You didn't cause it." He wanted to reach for her hand but didn't. Instead, he rubbed the back of his neck, a nervous habit she noticed. "You always do that when you don't know what to say?" she asked. He blinked, caught. "You're observant." "I clean for a living," she said. "I notice what others leave behind." A faint hum came from the vending machine, a sound that filled the pauses between their breaths. He stepped closer, enough that she could feel the warmth of him. "Lena," he said, her name almost a whisper. She turned, and for a second their faces were inches apart. Her eyes softened, not out of affection, but recognition. "You shouldn't look at me like that," she said. "Like what?" "Like you're trying to remember something you haven't lived yet." He laughed under his breath. "Maybe I am." Her hand moved, just slightly, brushing a stray thread from his sleeve. The motion was small, careful, but his heart kicked hard against his ribs. "Go home," she said, though her fingers didn't move right away. "People talk." "About what?" "About things that never happened," she said. "But still ruin you." She stepped back, her voice low but steady. "You've got a life to run, Daniel. Don't waste it here." He wanted to tell her that maybe here was the only place that felt real, but he couldn't. Instead, he reached for the mop bucket, helping her lift it to the sink. Their hands brushed again, firmer this time. The contact lingered longer than it should have. For a heartbeat, neither of them moved. Water dripped from the edge of the bucket, echoing softly in the empty room. She looked at him then, not as a man out of place, but as someone she shouldn't want to understand. He caught the faint tremor in her breath. She caught the truth in his eyes. And though no words were spoken, something unspoken shifted between them, quiet, dangerous, and impossible to undo. It started raining before midnight, one of those slow, steady rains that turn the city into a blur of reflected light. Daniel had stayed late again. No meetings this time, no excuses. Just a quiet building and a reason he didn't want to name. When he found her, she was standing by the service door, arms crossed, watching the rain slide down the glass. "You're back," Lena said without looking at him. "Guess I am. You really should stop making a habit of this." He stepped closer, his voice soft. "And missed the best part of my night?" That earned him a small look, not quite a smile, but close enough. The hallway lights flickered once, then steadied. The building felt suspended, like time had forgotten to move. Lena had taken off her gloves, her hands pale against the dim light. A thin streak of cleaning solution ran down her wrist. Without thinking, he reached out and wiped it with his thumb. She froze. "You shouldn't, I know," he said. But he didn't pull back. Her eyes flicked to where his thumb still rested against her skin. "You don't," she murmured. Silence stretched again, soft, fragile. Then her phone buzzed in her pocket, sharp and sudden. She flinched, pulling away, fumbling for it. The name on the screen made her hesitate. "Mark, supervisor." She answered quickly. "Yeah. Everything's fine. Just finishing up." Her tone was steady, professional, but her hand trembled slightly as she held the phone. He noticed. So did she. "Right. I'll lock up," she said, and ended the call. She exhaled, long and shaky. "You need to go, Daniel." He hesitated. "He checks on you often?" "Enough," she said. "Enough to know this looks bad." He wanted to argue, to say it didn't matter what anyone thought, but even as the words formed, they rang hollow. It did matter. To her reputation, her job, everything she'd worked to keep steady. "Lena," he started, but she cut him off. "Don't." Her voice cracked, barely, like something inside her was fighting to stay calm. She turned back toward the window, watching the rain again. He took a step closer. "I'm not trying to make this harder." "Yes, you are," she said, her voice low now. "You just don't realize it." He almost laughed, but it came out broken. "You think I want to what?" she asked, spinning to face him. "Ruin this? Ruin me?" Her eyes glistened under the harsh light, but she didn't look away. He took another step, close enough now that he could see the faint lines at the corners of her eyes, the way her lips parted like she wanted to breathe but couldn't. "No," he said quietly. "That's the last thing I want." Then came the silence again, but not the kind that waited. This one ached. Her hand brushed his arm as she moved to walk past him, but he caught her wrist gently. The touch was brief, a question more than a hold. She didn't pull away right away. "Tell me to stop," he whispered. Her eyes met his, steady, tired, longing. "Don't make me say it." The distance between them shrank to nothing. For a moment, all he could hear was her breath and the steady rhythm of the rain outside. His fingers loosened, but her hand stayed close, caught halfway between retreat and surrender. And then, a door creaked open down the hall. Lena jerked back, too fast. A coworker's voice echoed faintly, "Lena? You still here?" She swallowed hard. "In the East Wing," she called, voice clear but trembling. Footsteps faded again. They both stood frozen, heart still racing. Her gaze met his, that same unspoken gravity pulling them back together. He nodded once, as if to say I get it. But as he turned to leave, she reached out, barely touching the back of his hand, her fingers lingering for a heartbeat longer than necessary. Neither of them spoke. The rain pressed harder against the windows, and in that fragile pause, every unsaid thing between them hung heavy in the air, too close, too dangerous, too late to deny. The next few days blurred. Daniel told himself he'd stop showing up, but each night found him pacing the empty corridors, drawn to the soft rhythm of her work like gravity he couldn't fight. When he finally saw her again, Lena was stacking supplies in the storage room. The faint scent of lemon cleaner mixed with rain-soaked air still clinging to her clothes. She looked tired, more than tired, maybe, but when she turned and saw him, her expression softened for half a heartbeat before hardening again. "You really don't learn, do you?" she said. "Guess not. You're supposed to be upstairs. I like it better down here." "Then you're worse off than I thought." Her tone was sharp, but her hands trembled as she shut the cabinet door. He noticed the tremor, she noticed him noticing. The air between them thickened again, the way it always did before one of them looked away. This time, neither did. He took a step closer, then another. She didn't move, but her fingers curled around the edge of the metal shelf as if steadying herself. "You keep looking at me like that," she murmured, "and people will start asking questions." "Let them." She shook her head, eyes glinting under the flickering light. "You don't mean that." He did. He just didn't know how to say it without sounding like every mistake she'd ever warned herself against. "Lena," he said softly, "I can't stop thinking about you." Her breath caught. "Don't." But he stepped closer anyway, close enough that her shoulder brushed his chest when she turned slightly. The contact sent a quiet shiver through both of them. "You shouldn't say things like that," she whispered. "I've tried not to," he said. "Every night." "Then keep trying." She reached up to fix her bun, but her hand slipped, a strand of hair fell against her cheek. Before he could stop himself, he reached out and brushed it aside. Her eyes fluttered closed for a second. That was all it took, one heartbeat of silence, one breath too close. "I can't," she said, barely audible. "Can't or won't." She exhaled slowly. "Both." His hand was still near her face. Her skin was warm beneath the cool air of the storage room, her pulse visible in the hollow of her throat. He didn't move. Neither did she. "You don't understand," she said finally. "This, whatever this is, ruins people like me." He shook his head. "It doesn't ruin. It's real." She looked at him, eyes fierce now, voice trembling. "You think I haven't heard that before? Men say things they think they mean. Then they remember who I am. What I am." He flinched at that. "You're not what you do for a living." Her voice broke. "You don't get to say that." Something in him cracked then, something fragile he'd been pretending wasn't there. "I don't care what anyone thinks," he said. "You make me," she cut him off, stepping closer until her words barely brushed his lips. "Don't finish that." "Why not?" "Because if you do," she whispered, "I won't walk away this time." The shelf pressed cold against her back. His hand hovered at her waist but didn't touch. Every muscle in him ached to close that final inch, to let whatever they'd been circling finally happen, but her eyes held him still. They stood there, breathing the same air, hearts out of rhythm, the world narrowed to a single trembling question neither dared ask. Then a sharp knock echoed down the hallway. Her name, muffled but distinct. Lena froze. Daniel stepped back, chest rising fast. Her hand lingered midair, fingers still reaching toward him before she caught herself. "Go," she said hoarsely. He hesitated. "Lena, please." He turned for the door, stopped once, looked back. Her eyes met his, and in that look lived every word they hadn't said: want, fear, something dangerously close to love. The voice called again, closer this time. She whispered, barely audible, "Don't make me choose." The light above them flickered once more, then went out, leaving them in darkness, breaths tangled, the kiss hanging there, half-born, too late to take back. The next morning, the office felt colder. Daniel moved through the halls like a ghost, the polished glass and steel suddenly too bright, too sterile. Every reflection seemed to hold her face for a second too long before dissolving. He'd told himself to let it go. To bury whatever had taken root between them before it turned into something reckless. But by noon, when he saw her name flash in an email, Facilities Report, Lena M. all his resolve cracked. The message was short, professional. But at the bottom, tucked between her signature and the timestamp, was a faint smudge of something that wasn't quite dirt. Her handwriting, faintly pressed beneath the typed lines, "We need to talk." After hours. He waited. Every meeting dragged. Every word blurred. By the time the office emptied, the silence felt almost violent. He found her in the east corridor, standing by the vending machine, staring at the window. The rain had returned, softer this time, like the world was holding its breath. She turned when he approached, but her face wasn't soft tonight. It was tight. Careful. "You shouldn't be here," she said quietly. "Then why ask me to come?" She hesitated, looking down at her hands. "Because I couldn't say it in a message." "What happened?" She took a breath. "Someone knows." He felt the air leave his lungs. "What do you mean, my supervisor?" she said. "Mark. He saw us. That night." His heart dropped. "You're sure?" "He didn't say it directly," she said, voice shaking slightly. "But today he asked questions he shouldn't know to ask. About you. About the maintenance reports." He smiled when he said my name. Daniel swore under his breath. "He's bluffing." "He's not," she said, stepping closer, voice lowering. "He said he heard something from the storage room. That maybe I was distracting you." The word hit harder than he expected. He stepped forward until they were close enough that her scent, faint soap, faint rain, cut through the panic. "I'll handle it." She shook her head. "You can't. If you make a move, it proves him right." "So what then? You just let him hold this over you?" "I've dealt with worse." "Not while I'm here." Her laugh came out hollow. "You think you can protect me from every man who looks down on me because I wear a uniform? You can't. That's not your fight." "It is now." The words came out too fast, too raw. She froze. "Don't say that." "Why not?" "Because you don't know what it means," she said. "If you stand next to me, you lose more than your image, Daniel. You lose the version of yourself people still respect." He stared at her. The hallway lights hummed above them, casting thin shadows along the floor. "I don't care," he said finally. "Yes, you do." Her voice softened, breaking slightly. "And that's what makes you kind. But kindness doesn't change how the world sees us." He ran a hand through his hair, frustrated. "Then tell me what does." She looked at him, really looked. The wall between them cracked a little, and in her eyes he saw something fragile and fierce all at once. "Leaving," she whispered. The word hit him like a shove. "What?" "I asked for a transfer," she said. "Other building, same company. Starting next week." He blinked. "You're serious?" She nodded, eyes glistening. "It's the only way to stop this before it ruins us both." He took a slow step forward, voice trembling now. "You think distance fixes what's already there?" "It has to," she said. But when he reached out, her breath caught, that tiny hitch that always betrayed her calm. His fingers brushed hers, barely touching, but neither of them pulled away. "Say you don't want this," he whispered. Her eyes closed. "Don't make me lie to you." He exhaled sharply, the air between them charged with everything they hadn't said. "Then don't go." Her eyes opened, fierce now, wet around the edges. "You don't get to ask me that." She turned to leave, brushing past him, but he caught her wrist, not roughly, not pleadingly, just enough to stop her. "Lena, don't," she said again, but this time her voice trembled. "If you touch me right now, I won't walk away." He let go. Her hand hovered in the space where his had been, trembling before she tucked it against her chest. The rain outside thickened. Neither spoke for a long moment. Then she said, almost to herself, "It wasn't supposed to happen like this." He took one last step forward, voice low, breaking. "It never is." Her phone buzzed again, Mark. The screen lit between them, the name a wound neither wanted to see. She silenced it, then whispered, "Meet me tomorrow." One last time. Daniel didn't answer. He didn't need to. The silence said it all. Tomorrow wasn't going to be an ending. It was going to be the point of no return. The next night, the building was empty again, lights dimmed, corridors humming softly with the sound of the rain. Daniel waited in the small break room near the service elevator. The clock on the wall ticked too loudly. Every second stretched. When Lena finally walked in, her hair was damp from the rain, her jacket darkened at the shoulders. She didn't meet his eyes at first. She just stood there, breathing, the smell of wet pavement clinging to her. "You came," he said quietly. "I shouldn't have. But you did." Her lips pressed together, not in defiance, but in exhaustion. "Don't make this harder." He shook his head. "I'm not trying to make it anything. I just needed to see you." She finally looked at him then, really looked, and whatever she'd built to keep him away started to falter. The air between them was warm, heavy. He could hear the faint hum of the vending machine behind her, the rain whispering against the window, the rhythm of two heartbeats trying not to sink. "You know what happens if anyone finds out," she said softly. "Yes. They'll tear you apart for this." He took a step closer. "Then let them." She laughed under her breath, shaking her head. "You don't mean that." "I've never meant anything more." Her hands fidgeted with the strap of her bag, small, nervous motions that betrayed the calm she tried to hold. He reached out, brushing his fingers lightly against her wrist. She stilled. "Tell me to stop," he whispered. She didn't. Her breath came out uneven. "You're not making this easy." "I'm not supposed to." Their eyes met, the kind of look that doesn't ask permission. The kind that burns through every line drawn before it. He stepped closer until her back brushed the edge of the table behind her. His hand hovered near her face, then tucked a damp strand of hair behind her ear. She closed her eyes for a second, one heartbeat of surrender. When she opened them again, something in her had shifted. "Daniel," she said, barely audible. "You don't understand what this costs me." "Then let me pay it." "It doesn't work like that." "Maybe it should." She shook her head, eyes glistening. "You'll hate me for this someday." He smiled, faint but certain. "Then I'll deal with it someday. Right now, he stopped. His voice broke before the sentence could finish. Her hand moved, slow, hesitant, finding his. Their fingers threaded together without instruction. For a long moment, they just stood there, their foreheads almost touching, the silence thick with everything that didn't need words. "I was wrong about you," she said finally. "How?" "You're not as lost as you think." He exhaled, shaking his head. "And you're not as unbreakable as you pretend." A soft laugh escaped her, part pain, part relief. "Maybe that's why this can't last." He nodded, though it hurt. "Maybe." She reached up then, brushing her fingertips across his cheek. The touch was light, trembling. "You make me remember things I buried," she whispered. "And that's both the best and worst thing you've done to me." He leaned into her touch, just slightly. "Then don't forget me yet." Their lips hovered close enough to share a breath, but neither moved the final inch. The moment held, stretched, and trembled, two people balanced on the edge of what they wanted and what they shouldn't take. Then she stepped back. Slowly. "Goodbye, Daniel." He didn't stop her this time. He only watched as she walked toward the elevator, rainlight catching on her hair. When the doors slid shut, her reflection lingered in the glass, faint, fading. He stood there long after she was gone, the echo of her touch still on his skin, and for the first time he understood, what they had wasn't about winning or losing, or even about desire. It was about seeing, the rare, dangerous kind that changes a person forever. A month passed before he saw her again. The world had moved on, new projects, new faces, a calendar that didn't care who missed who. But for Daniel, every night still ended the same way, lights out, silence thick, her voice echoing in the corners of his mind. He'd stopped waiting by the elevator, stopped checking his phone. But nothing he did erased the habit of looking for her, the faint trace of lemon cleaner, the rhythm of footsteps that used to follow the quiet hours. Then one rainy Thursday, he stayed late again, not for her, not this time. Or so he told himself. The storm had darkened the building early, thunder rumbling over the city. He was halfway through an email when the soft creak of a cart made him turn. She was there. Same uniform, new badge. Different building assignment, but here, tonight. He stood up so fast his chair scraped the floor. "Didn't expect to see you here," he said, his voice a little too low, a little too careful. She smiled faintly, setting down the cart. Transfer didn't stick. They needed help covering shifts. "Right," he said. "Just temporary?" She shrugged. "Maybe." The word held possibilities neither of them dared unpack. The silence that followed wasn't the same as before. It wasn't heavy or forbidden. It was steady, like a truce. "How've you been?" she asked. "Working," he said. "Trying to stop making mistakes I don't regret." Her eyes softened. "That's not how that works." He stepped closer, slow enough for her to move if she wanted. She didn't. "I missed you," he said quietly. She looked down at her hands, then back up. "You shouldn't say that." "But it's true." Her breath caught, the smallest sound, almost a sigh. "You still don't know when to stop, do you?" "No," he said. "But maybe that's why you looked at me in the first place." That got her, the flicker of a smile she couldn't quite hide. He took another step, close enough to feel her warmth. "You ran from something that wasn't chasing you," he said. "I ran because it was," she replied. Her tone was gentle, not defensive. They stood there in the dim light, rain murmuring against the glass, their reflections ghosted together in the window's sheen. He reached out slowly, giving her time to pull back. She didn't. His hand brushed hers, warm, familiar, grounding. Their fingers intertwined easily, as though they'd been waiting for the chance to remember how. She exhaled. "You really don't care, do you?" "About what?" "The years. The rules. What people think." He shook his head. "You made me care about different things." She smiled, soft and tired and real. "You always say the wrong things the right way." He leaned forward then, just enough that his forehead rested against hers. Neither of them spoke. The air smelled faintly of rain and metal and the quiet pulse of something that had survived too much to vanish now. Her hand slid to his chest, resting there. His heartbeat thudded steady beneath her palm. "Feels different this time," she whispered. "It is." "How do you know?" "Because you didn't walk away." She laughed under her breath, a sound that melted into a sigh as he pressed a soft kiss to her forehead. Not hungry, not rushed, just honest. When she looked up, her eyes were clear. The hesitation that once lived there had finally burned out. "Maybe," she said, "we both just stopped pretending." He nodded, still holding her hand. "Then let's stop for good." She didn't answer, just leaned against him, the storm humming outside while the world kept spinning, slower now, quieter, perfectly fine. And for the first time, neither of them felt the need to leave.